And so, welcome to an evening of Dharma at Mountain Stream, and get comfortable in your seat and let me know if my voice is not loud enough, but I think it is. It's good. Great. So, just allowing yourself to get comfortable in your posture and arriving in your seat, chair, your cushion, however you're showing up, and knowing that all of you is welcome here. Whatever your views, whatever your opinions, however your emotions are, whether things are jumpy or calm, you are completely welcome. Coming into this space of Sangha, of community, as we afford ourselves the care and the dignity of this process of arriving. And really, so much of our formal practice is a training of the attention to stay here and present with just what is in the moment. And if your attention feels stable and settled, just letting go into your sensations, the moment by moment unfolding of experience, the thoughts that pass through but don't catch the attention, they're just seen, the sensations of emotions that are feelings, the feeling of our bodies making contact with what supports us. Just this here, this simplicity of being, nothing more to do or be. And if anything intrudes, just this mantra of not now. And if the attention needs assistance, just focusing it in, touching with the breath, this natural process, the breath that breathes us, a curiosity and a sensitivity to it, allowing the attention to maintain its contact. And so, you know, the simplicity of now. And so we sit, and I will give a verbal cue when the sitting period is over, and I'll remind the attention to come back from time to time. And if the attention has wandered, just gently, kindly bringing it back to the breath or whatever your practice is. Bring it back here. And again, if the attention has wandered, just put the puppy back on the paper, bring the attention back to the breath, back to here. And again, checking the attention. Om. 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 So the sitting period is over, and I believe we'll be having a break for a few minutes. Folks in the hall, there are bathrooms that are out through the doors and to your left. And everybody else, Robin, will you be ringing a bell? Or okay, great, great, great. Well, everybody, hi. It sure is good to be here with you, but I wanted to speak to our times and what people might be feeling. And so I'm offering this talk called Chop Wood, Carry Water, which is kind of a very basic Buddhist teaching that's been a very stalwart companion for me over the years. And I just want to acknowledge that, tonight's offering is an inclusive offering, acknowledging that there are as many views and opinions as there are people. And while there is likely a prevailing sentiment in our Sangha, you know, Buddha Dharma is based on inclusion because that's what mindfulness does. And mindfulness is the very foundation of our Vipassana tradition. It includes our present moment, our present experience without prejudice, and no matter what it is, and even if we wish it wouldn't. So that's the tough part. It includes, really the ruggedness and tenderness of being human and that vulnerable humanity that needs to be held with care. And so that's what we're doing. That's what tonight is about, meeting the truth of ourselves in this very moment with hopefully some degree of wisdom and skill and compassion. And I'm going to start out lofty and kind of to illuminate a guiding principle, and then bring things down to the everyday. And, you know, 6 months into my practice, I had the kind of strange good fortune of going on a 1 month retreat at Spirit Rock, the March retreat. And on a night deep into the retreat, and I kind of had an opening earlier that day, Jack Cornfield was giving the talk. And those of you that have heard me speak over the years have probably heard me once or twice reference this story. But, for me, it became my guiding principle. It became my North Star. And in a way, it became sort of the axis around which my life has, to some degree or another, revolved. And this is the story of back in the early 70s when Jack was practicing very intensively in Thailand. There was a Cambodian monk that was at the same wat or temple where he was practicing, and his name was Mahagosananda, and he eventually became the head of Buddhism, or sort of the guiding teacher, the guiding figure of Buddhism in Cambodia. But this was in the early 70s, and this was at the time that the Khmer Rouge erupted into their genocidal rampage. And Jack and Mahagosananda were traveling outside the country. And I just want to acknowledge that I'm telling the story very much the same way that Jack does or did, because that's how it impacted me. So, anyways, they were traveling outside the country, and the refugees were streaming out of Cambodia into Laos and Thailand. Um, and there was a death threat that had been placed on Mahagosananda. The Khmer Rouge was killing all of the intellectuals and all of the monks. And 17 members, basically all of Mahagosananda's direct immediate family, had been slaughtered. Um, and so they went into these refugee camps, or a refugee camp, and Mahagosananda went around and tried to provide the comfort that he could. But what he recognized was that the people needed to hear the Dharma. And so he put together some leaflets and passed them out. And they made sort of a makeshift platform for him to speak from. And the Khmer Rouge had actually infiltrated the camp. And the word was put out that anybody that came would be put to death. And so on the appointed day and hour, they didn't know if anybody would show up really. But on that day, slowly but surely, 25,000 people, basically every man, woman, and child in the refugee camp showed up to hear the Dharma. And Jack was sitting there looking out at the sea of, shattered faces, people that have been through unspeakable trauma, big ebullient families reduced to a grandmother and a grandson, a niece and an uncle. And Jack was wondering, what could Mahagosananda possibly share in the face of such trauma? And Mahagosananda stood up there in silence for a while, and then he slowly began repeating the words, the second verse of the Dhammapada, which goes, "Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed. This is the ancient and eternal law. Hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed." And he went on and on like this, repeating this. And Jack was amazed, how could he share these words to people that had been through what they had been through? Because implicit in these words were, at some level, forgiveness. And how do you forgive somebody that's just perpetrated a genocide on you and your family, your world? And as Mahagosananda continued to repeat, hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed, 25,000 people ultimately joined in with him, repeating, hatred never ceases by hatred, but by love alone is healed. And as Jack thought about it, he thought, well, Mahagosananda spoke to a truth that was even bigger than their suffering. And what occurred to me is that Mahagosananda spoke to the only thing in them that could not be crushed, and that was their hearts. And so, you know, I don't know if hatred was ceased ultimately, but it ceased in that moment, and there was healing in that moment. And in the midst of, you know, our confusion and our feelings, some may be elated, some may be uh, distraught, and everywhere in between. Again, in our sangha, there's probably, uh, you know, a disposition in a certain direction, and certainly our teachings uh, invoke that disposition. Um, I think another story about Mahagosananda that touches my heart so deeply is that after the after the killing fields, the Cambodian society was left to form a new government, and millions of people had been part of the Khmer Rouge. They had to form a new society, and the Khmer Rouge, by default, had to be a part of it and had to share in the governing. And so there were meetings that were held where there was, different factions represented. And there's the Khmer Rouge that are sitting at the table, these people that have, you know, unspeakable. And Mahagosananda gathered some of his monks, and they would go and stand in these meetings in silence, simply practicing loving kindness, radiating well wishing and well being without uh, without prejudice to all beings in that room for the benefit and well being of all. And so this is this lofty um, guiding star. There's some degree of what we're capable of as humanity. Um, but so where does this leave us? You know, we're living our human lives, and we're dealing with the aftermath of an election that may have been really traumatic for a lot of you. And I love this quote: chop wood, carry water. It's really about, okay, first of all, the basics. There's this breath, there's this body, there's um, focusing on our basic needs to ground us uh, and to bring us back to here, to bring the attention here. And so, whether you're elated or distraught, elation leads to exuberance, and that can spin us out. Distress can freeze us, but it can also spin us out. And uh, when there's kind of this neurological triggering of intensity, the energy in our bodies rushes up towards our heads, and that typically engages our thinking processes. And there was a time for me in my life that really exemplified um, this. Just it was so unambiguous and stark. And this was the time when I broke my leg terribly in 2021. I was up pruning some trees for fire safety, and I was about 10 feet up in a ladder, and I slipped and I fell and I landed and I shattered my right tibia. It was kind of, not to be too revealing, but it was sort of sticking out to the side, and I knew that I was in a really bad situation. Um, and so I had a worker there, and he went and got my phone for me. But as I'm lying on the ground, all of a sudden, all of these thoughts start, spinning in my mind. And maybe they're going to have to amputate my leg. Maybe I'll never walk again. I'll never be able to go to my beloved Table Mountain again. And then a part of me just, and this may be due to practice or whatever, but a part of me just, there was this recognition of, okay, Bruce, you don't really have the luxury to indulge all these thoughts right now in this moment. You don't have the luxury of spinning out. You've got to stay centered and focused. And and my attention reached out and just connected with the openness around me, and felt that it was not spinning, and there was some spaciousness, And in that space arose, okay, call 911, chop wood, carry water, call 911. And then the next part of chopping wood and carrying water was call my insurance broker because I didn't want to make a decision that was going to land me in bankruptcy. And there were a lot of decisions to be made on the fly. The next call I made was to my cousin, who's an orthopedic surgeon. I'm very privileged and fortunate to have a member like that in my family. But there's something about just presence itself, and the space is intelligent, taking that break, taking that moment, checking in with what needs to be done now. Um, and so, we have in our practice, I wanted tonight to offer some things that can be useful in this time for helping us hold ourselves and whatever we may be feeling. I think many of you are probably familiar with the acronym RAIN, RAIN. And so when we feel that sense of triggering, to recognize, wait a second, before the train has left the station, recognize, oh my goodness, I'm triggered. What's going on here? So to recognize, and then rain, it's just to accept. And this is something that, our mindfulness, our attention, our awareness does all on its own. It registers, it accepts, it includes what's happening. But then there's another aspect of acceptance, which is to accept, okay, this is actually happening to me here now. I'm triggered. Something's up. So that acceptance to actually be with it, acknowledge it, and not push it away, or try and necessarily change it. And then Rain says to investigate and then to nourish. And for me, that investigation, that when we accept, okay, this is actually happening, I think that the nourishment, reaching out, touching into something that supports us in the moment without abandoning the truth of our moment, the truth of what we're feeling, it's very helpful to be just with the sensations, even though, when my leg was broken, the sensations were very, very intense. It was easier to be with the simplicity of the sensations and their intensity than the whirlwind of thoughts and fears that were spinning. But it was so important that I nourished, for me, getting in touch with openness, with that sense of spaciousness and stillness that can't be harmed no matter how much I try and harm the space. It is not disturbed by what is happening. And so there's this, you know, I think it's important to nourish ourselves and stay in contact with that nourishment as we investigate. And really, the investigate is an allowing of things to unfold. Primarily, what's helpful is at the level of sensation, because that's where our emotions are happening. Our emotions are feelings. We call them feelings because we feel them. They're made up of sensations. And to stay with that simplicity, um, there's a second aspect here. The energy it is to recognize that what we're feeling, the energy of activation, the energy of intensity, can actually be an ally. It can rouse us and focus us. It can bring that attention. In that moment where my leg was so badly broken, I was, my attention became, after, the initial moments of shock and confusion, the attention became extraordinarily focused, and that connection to the nourishment was very, very steady. So it's not like the arousal or the intensity are necessarily our enemy, even though we might feel exhausted, you know. Um, and so there's a second and deeper level, though. There's many levels of chopping wood and carrying water. And that is simply to recognize that we, at some level are not the masters of everything. Uh, we can't control it all. As a matter of fact, trying to control it all is what gets us into true suffering. And the reality is that suffering is actually a part of the warp and weft, a part of the fabric of this existence. And it's a disclaimer, and I'm unhappy at some level to share it. But it's how we grow. We actually need it. And the Buddha was very clear. His very first truth that he ever offered was that there simply is suffering in this realm. There is suffering. And the word that he used for suffering is the word dukkha. And it's an interesting word because it actually, if you look at the word, two aspects, du and ka, and the word the part du means difficult or bad, and ka means whole. And the theory is that dukkha refers to a cart that has an axle hole that doesn't fit the axle well, causing a bumpy or unsatisfactory ride. It's never going to be just exactly as we like it. That's the nature of things. It may be for a while, it may smooth out, but sooner or later, it's bound to change. If we cling to that, we're going to suffer more. So, a better word for dukkha than suffering is this unsatisfactoriness. So, in a sense, our lot as practitioners is not just that we bow and, oh, woe is me. And, it's not really that compelling of a sales pitch for Buddhism. There is suffering, come on. But recognizing that there is suffering allows us to actually, uh, when we want to be free from suffering, we don't get free of suffering by avoiding it or transcending it. We get free of suffering by working with it, by embracing it, by being seasoned by it. It's not the only way that we come to our freedom, but it is a core way. And then we also have the humility to recognize that the web and the law of cause and effect is so vast and impenetrable that we're really left chopping wood and carrying water. And how do we do that? As practitioners, um, we do that by showing up. We do that by putting the puppy back on the paper again and again. We stay present so that when the possibility of a skillful response to the situation that we're in emerges, we can feel that skillfulness. It's aligned with our core values. It has this feeling of, uh, oh yeah, you know, it has the feeling almost of insight. So how do we do this? How do we bring this in moment by moment and maintain it? And really what's offered is us, us together. We have the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha. And the Buddha is really bowing to uh, the possibility of our freedom and recognizing that our nature, in its most simplistic form, is is free. John R. Travis, our founding teacher, likes to say that the word vipassana is often translated as seeing clearly, and he likes seeing into the subtle. And for me, I like seeing into or feeling into the simple. Um, and so, this recognition that we have a nature to be free, the Buddha, we have this extraordinary compendium of teachings, the Dharma, and we share that with each other in Sangha, in community. So simply by coming together, whatever our views might be, there's a power in that. There's an intentional field that we share um, with each other. And I'm just mindful the Buddha, the his right hand man and cousin Ananda, um, who served him until his death, um, said, "Gosh, Buddha, it occurs to me that the Sangha is half of the path." And the Buddha said, "No, dear Ananda, you are wrong. The Sangha is all of the path." And so I'm mindful of the monks that live in the temples, the Wats in Thailand and throughout Asia. Um, and I remember being in Thailand and before I knew anything really about Buddhism, and I needed change to I think make a call or do something, and I didn't have it, and I was near a temple, and I was asking for some help to find some change because I needed, and they said, "Oh, go to the temple," and I went to the temple, and the monks there were like they were running around. It was as if it was the most important thing in their world for them to find me some change. And so I love this about a village temple. Um, it's a place where people in distress go, no matter the time of day or night. They go and they just sit there, you know, um, in the field of that temple. And I love the fact I was talking with Adam, and he shared that last week after the election, he had open temple every day, and that's so profound. That's building Mountain Stream into a village temple, a true community Dharma center. So I hope that you feel that Mountain Stream is a place of refuge for you, that the people you're gathering with, whether virtually or in person, is a hugely valuable support in this time and one that you can come back to again and again. So I want to give you a few exercises just in the moment for you to carry with you. And then we're going to open it up for questions and reflections. And but the first one that I'm going to share, I just want you to have some things of support in this time. And the first one is just your breath, being intentional with your breath. And it's very interesting when you breathe in, your heart speeds up a little bit. As you breathe out, your heart slows down a little bit. So just practice breathing in with me, in, and then a longer out. Let's see if you can feel that in, out. Notice if you can feel if that's settling in some way. I also, like I mentioned earlier, that when we're triggered, the neurological energy in our body tends to move upwards. If we place our attention on our feet, on the soles of our feet, where they're making contact, where there might be sensations of coolness or warmth, pressure, tingling, whatever, um, that we just touch in with that and feel that. You might even imagine that if your feet are making contact, or even if they're not making contact with the floor, that roots are extending down from the soles of your feet, extending into the earth, deeply, deeply rooting and grounding you in this earth that has held you in every moment of your life, no matter what you've done, said, no matter how you felt. You didn't have to earn that. It's your birthright. So just feel that the soles of your feet, energy at the bottoms of your feet, extending like roots deep, deep down into Mother Earth. Ah, going to offer another exercise, another gesture that you might find useful. And this is the hand, just simply the hand on the heart. And for some people, this might not actually feel all that great because it might feel a little claustrophobic. So if it doesn't feel right for you, please don't feel you need to do it. But just by placing your hand on your heart and, this sense of, I care, I care about myself and how I feel. This maybe is a moment of suffering and I care. Just that simple gesture of self care can be very powerful. And then taking your hand and just gently stroking your sternum down to your diaphragm. This actually stimulates the vagus nerve, releases oxytocin, which is the connecting and calming hormone. And then, sometimes these exercises, they don't really work and we need to take a time out. And that's okay. We can do that intentionally and say, it's okay for me to take a time out and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to turn on, you know, something on Netflix. I know for myself, I liked the sitcom Cheers. I watch that and it's just like, whoop, okay. It's light, it's easy, and it's okay to do that. And then the other thing is connect with others. Don't be isolated. You can let go of the feed. You're not responsible for the news. You it's really, really skillful to connect with others, especially people that are doing this radical thing of opening to their experience and turning instead of having the attention turned outward, we're doing this radical thing of turning inward. So that's what I have to share for now. And now let's hear from you and just see kind of what's up for you. What do you need? What reflections? What's been helpful? So we have the ability to either raise your hand or change that. It's a better view. Okay, so if you're in the meditation hall, Robin, do we have someone in
Hi,
there with?
Bruce. This is Jen in the meditation hall. I've got the mic and I'm happy to pass it. If
Okay,
someone is interested, just let me know.
and for those of us on Zoom, if you raise your hand on Zoom, you bring your cursor down to the bottom, and where is the raise your hand? Is it in?
Yeah, it's down at the bottom. This is Robin in the back. Down at the bottom, the heart that says reactions, or
Uh,
if your screen is really small, you'll click more and then go to reactions, and then you can just press the raise hand and then ask a question or a comment, a feeling, a thought.
Great. So, does anybody have anything they'd like to share? Does anybody need anything in the moment? or want to share something that might be of help.
Well, while we wait for people to think, Bruce, and then for you, those of you all, again, this is Robin again. I just really appreciated your talk. And one of the things that I struggle with um, is not feeling like I'm doing enough. And sometimes, like when you're talking about letting go of control, it's like, what is just my white privilege and what is my practice and how can I do more? I can say that I'm able to come with more curiosity than aversion um, in the past. But so I see myself grow in that way. But there is that feeling of overwhelm and then also not being able to do enough or make a difference. And how do you deal with those feelings and really show up and as with the teachings?
Yeah, so this piece about there's the one aspect of privilege, there's also another aspect of overwhelm. And I know, you know, um, so I think this thing about privilege is just, it's really beyond and above any term. It's really about sensitivity, it's really about humility and curiosity, um, and this willingness to learn,
Mm.
um, and to know, to understand that, oh, wait, I can't put myself, I have some blindness. I can't put myself in the experience of, uh, of people who grew up uh, in a radically different orientation.
Mhm.
And then there's really the sense of overwhelm, and this is where I think we come back, Robin, to um, just being really true with ourselves, being very kind, uh, nourishing the nourishment. It's like what in can we allow? Of course, we may feel overwhelmed. Of course, we may feel confused, disoriented, whatever. I love that word. It's sort of the mantra. Of course, it's sort of normalizing. This is how I feel. Of course, I feel this way because this is what's coming up in the moment. So the sense of overwhelm is to know that the Buddha said, you can search the entire universe over for someone more deserving of your love and kindness other than yourself. And that person, that being, is not to be found. So it's the truth of taking care of yourself. And there's also that thing about when you're on the airplane, you got to take care of yourself before you can take care of others. So they say, put your mask on first before you help the child or another person who may need assistance near you. Um, so we've got to allow uh, what's arisen to flow through, and there's sometimes where we have the ability to hold that sense of nourishment and allow things to unpack themselves and unfold and flow through and kind of clear out. There's other times where it's too much, you know, um, the waves are too big. And where is shore? What is shore going to be? Maybe shore is checking out for a moment, or maybe a long moment. Maybe shore is a hot bath, or a good cup of tea, or a walk in the woods. Maybe shore is going over to a friend's and getting a much needed hug. Maybe shore is coming to Mountain Stream and walking the labyrinth, you know. And then, when you're resourced yourself, it's, when we are over threshold, when we're jumbled and confused. We really, our job is to take care of ourselves and come back to within a range that, we can regulate. We've got to take care of our nervous system first. And then the next thing is, once we are regulated, is just to allow some openness, allow some spaciousness, and the space itself is intelligent, and to trust that uh, insight, which is basically vipassana means insight, that insight will arise. There's that after the assassination of Martin Luther King, Robert Kennedy went into a predominantly African American neighborhood, and he had been advised not to do that. And the people there did not know of Martin Luther King's assassination. And this is known as one of the greatest speeches ever given in American history. And it was done, you know, extemporaneously off the cuff. Um, and you can hear the shock and the shock of the people hearing the news that Martin Luther King had been assassinated. There was an audible gasp in the crowd, and he just came out and said it very forthrightly. And then he quoted to this group of people, um, not knowing anybody's educational history, but again, speaking a truth that somehow something in them could resonate with. He quoted Aeschylus, this playwright and poet from ancient Greece, who said something to the effect of, I'm going to mangle this, but he said, uh, somewhere in our confusion, in our sleep, pain unbidden falls drop by drop upon the heart until through the awful grace of God, wisdom arises. And to me, that is just chop wood, carry water. We just stay on the path. And when the opportunity arises we stay on the path by taking care of ourselves. We stay on the path by being together. We stay on the path by hearing the Dharma. We stay on the path by trusting that we have a nature that is free, that we can recognize and realize. And it'll happen,
Thank you, Bruce.
there. Anyone else in the room or online here? So I just want to, it seems like we're speechless. And that's okay. Anybody need anything out there? Has anybody had something that's been helpful to them in this time? Okay. So I'm going to offer to you to place your hand on your heart. Take an in breath and let the out breath be long and slow. What a wondrous thing it is to be able to care for yourself. to have tools, to have community. And knowing that there's this well-wishing within you for your well-being. You want to be happy. You want to be cared for. You want to be safe. These are things that everybody everywhere wants. You want to be included. And with your practice, moment by moment, you include yourself. There's this well-wishing, this friendliness towards yourself, your experience. And if you can feel that maybe sense of warmth that's associated, oh, I care for myself. I've shown up tonight. That's the most obvious. This sense of warmth being in your chest and allowing it to spread through you. Really holding yourself. And like a candlelight that glows, allowing that light to spread out beyond you, that warmth to expand. That's what warmth does. It expands. And the light, like the sun, touches all beings, all things, all sensations with equality, without preference. So if I can expand this warmth and well-wishing outside myself, can it include those who have helped me? Can it include those who have been kind to me, who've put the wind in my sails? Sometimes just thinking of them, it brings a smile to our face. These are the people that are our supports, easy to generate and share this warmth, this friendliness, this kindness. And also to our dear and beloved ones, can we share this warmth and light? To our friends, our family. Even to people that we may just know in passing, people that we see at the grocery store, around town. We might wave, or they're familiar, but we don't necessarily have a relationship with them. Can they be included? Bring them into this light. And recognizing that all beings wish to be happy. Some may go about it in ways that we feel are harmful or unskillful. They can be difficult people. They can be challenging. It can be difficult to extend this light, and yet that's the nature of the light itself. And can this light extend out and include and move beyond? It has no limit, including all beings in our world, all beings throughout the universe, all beings in other realms, Just feeling this light, this goodness of warmth and friendliness extending out in all directions. Knowing that if that's not there right now, there is the possibility for that when conditions allow. And we can be kind and patient with ourselves until such time. And so, with sincerity, we have this basic intention and well wish that all beings everywhere might be truly happy, might know the blessings of our practice, and if there's any merit or goodness that we've generated here together tonight, we offer that out to all beings without distinction. Om, Om, Om. Thank you for your practice and your attention.